Today we're looking at lesson 69. We're looking at gas law problems. We have looked at gas problems already. You remember this formula? PV over T, PV over T. Okay. What we've been doing is just plugging in everything and then simplifying to solve for our missing value, right? We just put them all in and solve. Some people think it is better to simplify the top equation for whatever you're looking for and then plug in. So instead of plugging in and then simplifying it, they think it's easier to like simplify it, rewrite it, and then plug in your numbers. Like simplify it by solving for whatever you're wanting to find. Like if you're wanting to find P1, then they make it so that P1 equals whatever, and then they plug in their information. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's what we're going to do for this lesson. The reason, these numbers, do they look different than the ones we've had? They're all big. Yeah, and they're in scientific notation. They're all like weird numbers, right? In the past, we've had like 300, 12, 50, that kind of thing. Easy numbers to write down. Are you more likely to make a mistake doing these? So that's why you want to be able to simplify your equation first and then plug them in. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'll wait for y'all to write that down, and then we'll go over how to actually do it. Yeah, that's what the respectively means. Yes, -6. That's part of the problem. That's part of it. Yes. That is our formula, right? It gives you a little hint. It says begin by solving for T2. Does that make sense? So how are we going to solve for T2? We've got two fractions equal to each other. What can I do? No. What do you normally do with this? Cross multiply? We can cross multiply, right? Do it. Does that make sense? And then how do I solve for a T2? Does that make sense? Do y'all see how that works so far? Okay. So now I need to figure out what is my P2? Do you agree? Okay. What was my V2? My V2. Okay, what is my T1? Yeah. What is my P1? And what is my V1? Do you agree? Not always. Sometimes. I do. Well, you're likely to make a mistake. 1.5 times 7 and then divide it by 3. And then what? Put it there? Yeah, you can. That's fine. That's what, I mean, that's what most people will start doing automatically. 11, negative 5, 1, and then 11. Do you agree with that? Does that make sense? You see how that works? So, Jamar, say what you said, or what you were asking a minute ago. Say that. Just want to know, can I simplify them here, like I did here? Can I simplify them before I plug them into the equation? Like, can you simplify these in your head at this point? Yeah? So is there any need to put them like this in your formula? Not really. You can go ahead and simplify them and like skip a step. Does that make sense? Y'all see how that works? Okay. So let's look at another example. Any questions on this one? Okay. I don't know that they'll always tell you what variable to start by solving for. They will for the first few, at least, and then you should eventually figure out what you're actually solving for. Does that make sense? No, yeah, it's the pressure. Because then they tell you the final volume was centimeters cubed. Temperature, kelvins. So what? Start by cross multiplying. What, Molly? Oh. It tells you the final volume was whatever centimeters cubed. So the 0.007 has to be the volume, so the first number has to be the pressure. If you're ever confused on that, look at the units that they give you. Do what? It is. All right, will someone go write the formula that we're going to be using? No, like the thing that you start with, the very, very beginning. That's what I meant. Do you agree with that? Okay, will someone else simplify it? Yeah. Do you agree with that part? Okay, will someone solve for P2? Do you agree? Okay. Any questions so far? Yeah, you want P2 by itself. Does that make sense? Okay. Will someone go fill in our formula? Yeah, you can go ahead and put them into simplified scientific notation. Is that what y'all mean? Yeah. I feel no need to actually write out those numbers if you can do that in your head. Okay, she has 3 times 10 to the 11th. Do you agree with that? 7 times 10 to the negative third? 3 times 10.
I think it's 6. 4. Oh, that is a 4.
To the 4th?
You'd be amazed. Look at that.
I didn't put the name on it. I've graded 16 of your tests this year.
I don't know how to do it.
Just tap it. No, with the eraser. Do y'all agree with 3 times 10 to the 4th?
Yes.
Okay. 3 times 10 squared?
Yes.
And 7 times 10 to the 3rd.
Yes.
Make sense? I personally, whenever I see these numbers, the 7 and the 7 and the 3 and the 3, I go ahead and eliminate them. Does that make sense? You don't have to. You can say 3 times 7 times 3 divided by 3 times 7, but there's no point. So what number do we have left? Just a 3. So on this one, we don't even have to multiply or divide. So you just have 3 and then times 10, 11 minus 3 plus 4, 1. And then what is down here? So we have 1, and then is it plus 5 or minus 5? Which is what? Does that make sense? I was thinking 1 minus 5. That's why I was like, what? Yeah. Do you agree with that? What would be the units on that?
Wait, I didn't get that.
You didn't?
I got 1.47 times 10 to the 15. And I put it in.
No, that's what it should be.
This is the right? Positive or negative? I can get that mixed up.
This is a small number, and so it's subtracted. Okay. So on these, are they really necessary to use your calculator for? Most of them are going to be like that. There's really no point in using your calculator on these. If you want to use your calculator, you can, but I think it takes longer to plug it all into your calculator than to just simplify it like that. Any questions on those? The ones we did yesterday that had a bunch of numbers, that makes more sense to use your calculator, but these are just 3, 7, 3, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? The other ones we did yesterday were like 4,152 times another big number. They didn't have a lot of zeros. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I keep getting it.
Because you're using your calculator.
But I put it in.
Obviously, you did not.
I put it in twice.
Then you put it in twice wrong.
Yeah.
I can't go back and. Like I just said, I would suggest just doing it by hand instead of using the calculator. These are not difficult numbers. I think it's easier just to do it by hand than to plug it into the calculator. Not for these, I don't think. If they do, temperatures or volumes or pressures will be held constant, so that you only have 3 numbers to worry about. Does that make sense? Like if they're weird numbers, I think that one of them will be held constant. Any questions on these? Yep. If it holds constant, you start by, if the volume's held constant, you don't even use it in this equation. You just drop it off. Does that make sense? Any other questions on these? Okay, I've got your test.